Hello, everybody, and welcome to Small Business Small Talk, a show to educate, entertain, and empower small business leaders to do great things. I am your host, Christy Smallwood. I am Chief Strategic Guide of Eagle Eye Strategies, and I welcome you to this episode of Small Business Small Talk. Now, I have big news before we get real started here. I have a partner now for this podcast, and it is the Chamber of St. Matthews. And the reason why they are now partners is because I am an affinity partner with that chamber. That means we are working together to help build both sides of the table kind of thing. So they are now an official sponsor of Small Business Small Talk, and I welcome them in to give them all the attention that they could possibly get, because I do believe in getting involved in your local chamber, especially if you're a small business. That's how you grow your network of people and referrals and have a good influence into your community, and all kinds of magical things can happen when you are involved in your community. So a chamber is the best place to start, and you might as well start with the Chamber of St. Matthews. So I thank them for being my partners in this Small Business Small Talk podcast. Now I want to welcome my guest, who honestly I've been excited about this conversation for a few months, because when we did our one-on-one from networking, I learned a lot about this guy, and I love what he does. So he has a lot more creative juices in his pinky than I do in my entire life. So very excited to welcome in Joseph Hearne with Decree Design, a branding and design company based here in Louisville, Kentucky. Joe Hearne, welcome in. Now, do you go by Joseph or Joe? Because I know we go back.
Either works. Hey, you would do the job, but you can call me Joe. But thank you for having me on.
Well, I know we discussed it before. I know I asked you back in the spring whenever we had our one-on-one, and I've been looking forward to this conversation because I know about branding. I know what branding can do for people, but I want to be able to have this conversation on this podcast episode a little bit. But first, let's tell everybody a little bit more about you. Like, how did you even get started being so creative and turning it into a branding company? What's your backstory, Joe?
Well, let's see if I can condense this. It's tough to condense. I feel like I've done more at the age of 30 than I have most in their entire life. So yeah, I mean, just to kind of give a hint, I've moved 8 times in the last 8 years. But yeah, before I get into that, so a little bit about me. I obviously own Decree Design Company. My wife and I have been married for 8 years, here in like a week and a half.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I have a super energetic 4-year-old. So if you hear a thump, 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 it's because he's running back and forth above my office, upstairs. And then I have a super energetic in the womb daughter who will be here in December. So yeah, grew up an Army brat, got to see a lot, got to experience a lot, but all throughout that time, if I think about it, 2 things that really attracted me at a young age were music, and skateboarding, and both of those had a really big, strong visual and graphic influence on me. For skateboarding, visuals are everything when it comes to skate decks and the designs that go on the bottom of skateboards. And then for music, it was not necessarily band merch and posters, which are awesome, but just the album artwork in and of itself. I was the guy that would go into a music store and I might buy an album just because of the way that it looked. So playing guitar and skateboarding and snowboarding in the wintertime, they were always my priority. And eventually my goal was to become a touring musician, but I realized I needed to have something that could be done remotely, if that's a word, I'm not really sure. But just in case like touring wasn't going to be bringing in a lot of money at the time, like graphic design could be something I could do in a van or in a bus or whatever. I had big dreams of being a touring musician. But I came to realize that touring just wasn't for me. So I still kind of stayed on the track of graphic design.
Okay, so hang on a
like I
second.
said, yeah.
Touring wasn't for you, but you've moved 8 times in 8 years.
Well, yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess it was like I realized it couldn't provide for a family. And honestly, like I really like sleep. So when you're in a band and you're trying to get up and go and you're practicing and really more than anything, when you start out, you're just trying to do local shows, and then you might be able to get a show within like an hour and a half, or 2 or 3 hours away, but it just takes a lot. And I was finishing up college and I was just like, I can't do this anymore. So yeah, like I like sleep, and being a musician means staying on the road and staying up late, and neither of those I like. Anyway, so I finished college. I finished college at Western Kentucky University. I got a degree in visual studies, graphic design. Got married, couldn't find a job. Pretty much just worked wherever I could find work at. Staples, that was soul sucking. Loan auditing at a bank, that was even more soul sucking. And I took a job at a car lot, which was the ninth level of hell, if you ask me. But anyways, like it was just a bunch of stuff that I hated.
Right. It
But
wasn't
about
your
4 or
fit.
5, no, I just couldn't find anything in design really. But about 4 or 5 months after I graduated college, Owensboro, Kentucky has the International Bluegrass Museum, and a board member contacted me out of the blue. They had started the beginning stages of rebranding while they were also getting the ball moving for building a new location. And they were working with this designer, and they didn't like what that designer was coming up with. So the board member asked me to come up with something so that they could get an outside perspective. And looking back, I shouldn't have done it. I didn't get paid a single cent for it. And for an organization that's backed by millions, the whole process was kind of odd, if anything. But long story short, I provided them with a direction that I thought would be cool. And they said it was the most unique option that they had been presented with. They loved it. But what I was told was that the majority benefactor of the organization, he was the only one on the board that didn't like it. So it wasn't used. But a web developer, and I don't even remember how, but a web developer ended up seeing that logo and asked who did it. He got in contact with me. We met for coffee, and he just simply asked if I wouldn't mind starting a business with them. So I did. And we both did it as supplemental part-time income for a while. Most of it was a lot of websites, a lot of brochures, book covers, just like your standard kind of run-of-the-mill like grunt work in the design industry. I did some logos, but it was never like long-term branding projects. We helped people, that's always cool, but it was kind of like the logo work where there's no growth in that type of logo work. It's the lowest budget type clients, and
I just need
again,
a
you're
logo.
helping them.
I just need a logo. I just need a logo.
And so fast forward a bit, I'll try to wrap this up as quickly as I can, but fast forward a little bit. 2017 comes along. My business partner decides he wants to leave the company. And I was considering stopping graphic design just because I had lost passion for it. Again, the kind of work we were doing, it didn't excite me anymore. I loved helping people, but it didn't excite me. So I thought about, well, if he's leaving, maybe I'll just leave too. We'll shut it down. But I kind of came to the realization, like, I can create a brand new company. Like, I can do the work that I've always wanted to do. And it was challenging, but it excited me. So in December of 2017, took a leap of faith. My family and I relocated to Louisville, Kentucky. I just decided I'm going full time with this. And yeah, so in February of 2018, I launched Decree Design. I've had, an on-site design job on staff at a location for about a year and a half, and it was stifling. And I've interviewed at multiple places, for design positions over the years, but it just wasn't. It was never going to be a good fit. It was always typically like during the interview process, if they didn't stop the process, I would stop the process. I didn't like the idea of working in an environment where the position was important, but the pay didn't resemble that of an important position.
Right.
And the required time in the office, away from family, working weekends. Agencies kind of have that bad, reputation. And I know you have a background that understands that.
Yeah.
And then of course, like, having to do these last minute projects because some top brass has a wild idea and he's like, I need to see mock-ups immediately. Like, that just wasn't going to work for me. And if I was going to work a lot, I wanted it to be because I was building something for myself. And ultimately, I think owning a business has just always been something that was kind of wired within me. Like, even like when I think back of like an early age, I was 14. I think it was 14, somewhere around 14. And like, I started this skateboard, snowboard, streetwear apparel company. And it was called, I think it was called Eastway Skate and Snow or something like that. But I would do these horrible designs in Microsoft Paint, and then I would
Oh,
take them to a
Microsoft
local.
Paint.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It was bad. It was bad. I mean, some of the designs even had like stick figures, and I had like this logo that I had done in PowerPoint, and it was horrible. But yeah, so I would take these designs and I would take the logo to this local t-shirt shop, and I would get like trucker hats and I would get t-shirts with the designs and the logos, and then like my friends would actually buy them. Looking back, I don't know if it's because they pitied me or
Do you
what it
still have
was,
any of
but
those? Those would be great
uh,
giveaways.
I honestly don't. Maybe at my mom and dad's house, maybe like in storage or whatever. Maybe. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it was somewhere around there. Maybe I can find some the next time I go visit my mom and dad. But yeah, like I just think creating something for a living was always kind of hardwired within me. And believe it or not, that's probably the short version of the story. So I rambled there for a minute, but yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the fun part of doing this podcast. Like, I just let you guys run, and that's what makes it so interesting. Is because you're genuinely telling your story. This isn't a sit down and tell me like your strengths and weaknesses and how you overcome that. This isn't a job interview. So
Yeah.
this is the fun part of having this podcast. So I honestly love the idea of you should totally take and make one of those hats or a shirt like with that 14-year-old logo. Say, this is how far I've grown. Like, you could have got this you could get for $50 or
Mhm.
this. Like, there's a whole different level here of things.
Have you seen that picture? Have you seen that picture of like, it's a horse that's been cut in half, and it's like client's expectations, and it's like half the horse is this realistic drawing, and it's got the best shading and the best it's captivating, and then the other side it's just like line art that like a 2-year-old did, and then so it's like client expectation, client budget. Yeah, like hopefully that would be the way that people see like when I was 14 versus now. But yeah.
So, okay, what is the thing that you love the most about what you do?
I think that's an interesting question. I just like the idea of bringing a strong visual representation to a business, because I think a lot of the times it's not something that really people think through as being important. They just see it as almost like a necessity to just check off the list. The problem is when I get in and I get to know these companies, and I start doing a branding project, and we kind of walk through the brand evaluation that I do with clients and everything. You start to see light bulbs come on for the client. Like, I didn't think about that. I didn't think that would be important. I never thought of it that way. And then a lot of the times when you start walking through these brand evaluations, they start realizing that their strategy is all screwed up. They don't have a target, and they didn't think through how can our brand identity help target our target demographic. Target 2 times in a row there, but how can the way that we visually represent ourselves communicate and
Attract.
effectively draw in and attract the people
Yeah.
that we're looking for. So I like doing that, and I like bringing about something that can help attract a consumer to the business. But also, I work with a lot of small businesses. I like making them visually outcompete the big people in the area, the big competitors. So like when I do a branding reveal, before I even get to showing them the identity, we walk through and we say, okay, here's your competitors and here's how they look. And then I show them what I've designed for them. And then the very next, like 2 slides later, I'm like, here's the main one. And then here's some variations, because I do what's called responsive identity design system. So it's got a multiple various applications that can be used. But after I show that to them, I go back and I set theirs that I've designed for them right next to their competitors. And I'm like, all right, are we out competing your competitors? And typically that seals the deal. They're like, oh wow, like we're visually better looking than our competitors. And our competitors have been around for such and such many more years than we have, and we look way more professional than them. Yeah, and I have clients, that have Amazon and UPS and Maker's Mark and Jim Beam and Country Music Hall of Fame and Fruit of the Loom. Like I have clients that have them as clients. And so to kind of be a guy behind the scenes working for them and then helping them go get these kind of clients, like I just think that's cool. And like I'm a sucker for an underdog. So if I can take a business that's like, even if they come to me, they're like, here, our budget is not typically what you charge, but we like your style, we want you to do it, we're not price shopping. I mean, I'll take that client on if we can find some financial compromise, if you will.
Oh wait,
because
you gotta get paid for this? What?
Yeah. But like I'll take them on because like I think what they're doing is cool, I believe in what they're doing, and quite frankly, sometimes I'm like, yeah, I know some of your competitors, I can't stand them, and I think what you're doing is going to blow them out of the water, so like let's do it. That was a long answer to your question.
You've talked about a responsive design, and I know that means like more than one version of things, looking at it in different places. What's the difference between what you're bringing to a business versus the logo? Like help this audience understand the difference between a logo and a brand.
So the difference between a logo and a brand, first and foremost, I would just say the identity, your logo, your visual identity, that represents 10% of the other 90% unseen items that go into your brand. So a lot of the times, like people are, well, this is our brand. Well, that's your brand identity. But that represents, the other 90%. That's how do you treat your customers? What kind of products do you sell? How does it make their life better? How do you treat your employees? What type of authority and trust can you provide to your consumer? How do you logistically operate? I mean, all of those things go into a representation of what people think about when they see your identity, your logo. But I would say like branding, brand identity is different than a logo, because a logo is just it's one item, and sometimes it responds. It's if we've got this big thing that we could put on the side of a sign or on the side of a semi truck or a billboard or whatever, but how does it look when it's the little, what is it, 25 pixels by 25 pixels favicon that's up in your little URL bar? You might not be able to do your full logo in there, but you could have a little icon or a little symbol that when you see that, it resembles the logo in some fashion. So a brand identity is you've got your main primary, and then you've got secondary and tertiary graphics that can go with it. You've got your color palette that goes to support that. You've got your fonts that have been chosen. Like every single time we do a marketing campaign, like or even your business card, this is what the heading font is, this is what the subheading font is, this is what the body copy font is. They all look like they're a part of this brand. They match the logo well, the whole identity system well, and yeah. So it's thinking past the logo and trying to provide an all-encompassing, cohesive look. the colors look like it go with the type, and the type looks like it goes with the colors, and all of it goes in to support this logo. But yeah, and then the logo in and of itself should have the ability to, as I said, respond based on the size. So like one thing I like to do for my clients is I like to put together these badges, so it'll have the logo in it, it'll have the type, it'll have maybe the year that it was established, or like a quirky quote in it, or something like that. And so that can like look really cool on a t-shirt or on a billboard, or something that's unique. Or it can just be, when you remove all of that, like the icon stands well by itself. Or maybe you have an alternative word mark that you can use that is different, but at the same time you look at it and you're like, oh, it's got very similar characteristics to the badge that's over here. So it's all about like providing options that can be used based off the parameters that are required depending on the marketing piece or campaign or whatever.
I always like to tell people, because we do have these kind of conversations where I just need a logo. I'm like, what about these other things? I'm like, you have to remember, when you're messaging out to your ideal clients and you're trying to bring them in like a bug zapper, right? You're trying to give them the light. They need something to associate what you're presenting with a feeling consistently every time they see it, touch it, smell it, hear it, whatever. Like multisensory, what are you bringing to your audience so that they can resonate with it and associate with that? Like if they're seeing, like we know over time, one of the, Nike, the swoosh, if we see that, we associate it with athletics. We associate it with Just Do It. We associate it with, whatever. And like Dove has the little Dove sign. We associate that with Pure. Like there's certain associations, mental, psychological things that are happening. And that's what you talked about on the back end. There's so much strategy that goes into that. That's where I love to play, is all this strategy. Like, what does this stuff mean and where does it fit? And working with somebody like you just puts that one element together of how does my business show up as its own entity in the marketplace? How do we look and feel and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, and like people ascribe, I guess would be the right word. They ascribe these emotions to a logo. They have this emotional reaction when they see a logo, and to kind of like tell a story. I had this client look at me and say, a logo is not important. It's just a logo. I said, I can prove you wrong. And she said, I don't remember. I think she said, no, you can't. And I said, no, I'll prove you wrong right now. And she said, like, basically, I'd like to see you try it, so I did. And I said, where are your favorite places to shop at? And she said, Walmart and Target. And I said, oh, you don't like Kroger? She said, no. I said, why? And she said, I know that I can find what I'm after when I go to Target, which the bullseye, that's obviously what that represents. And she's like, I know I can find what I'm after when I go to Target. And she said, I like the prices of Walmart and Target. And I said, okay, well, but why not Kroger? And she said, they're expensive. I can never find what I want in there. It takes forever to check out. I mean, she went on for like basically explaining like why she despises Kroger. And I said, okay, let's imagine you're on vacation. I think Gatlinburg, because everyone goes to Gatlinburg, was where I sent them on this theoretical journey towards. I said, all right, you're on your way to Gatlinburg. You're going to be about 30 minutes away from the cabin. And I said, you got to go get groceries. So instead of going to the cabin and going back out, you want to go get groceries and supplies just on your way to the cabin. You're on the interstate. You see an exit coming up. I was like, to the left, you see up on the horizon, you see a Kroger sign. To the right, you see a Walmart and a Target sign. Obviously, the sign is just simply the logos. And I was like, which direction are you going? She said, right. I said, why not go left? She's like, because Kroger's that way. And I hate Kroger. I was like, but you saw Target and Walmart logos up on the horizon, and you associated that with ease and the ability to find what you were looking for the price that you wanted. She said, yes. I was like, so logos don't matter? And she was like, she goes, you convinced me.
Oh, that was a mic drop.
So
No,
yeah,
I could just only imagine the face of, oh, damn.
yeah. I mean, it was funny. It was, and like I'm really close to the two owners of that company. I mean, it's more than just a client, you know, company relationship. Like we're good friends, at this point after working together for a couple of years. But yeah, it was funny. I just don't think people realize, like, you assign that emotional reaction to something when you see it. And we do the same with people. I mean, like at this point, my entire left arm is, there's a couple of inches here and there that aren't covered with tattoos, but we dress the way that we dress. We style ourselves the way that we style because we want to be seen as a part of a certain organization or movement or whatever it be. And so when people see me as someone who's got their entire left arm tattooed, they're going to have certain assumptions, for better or for worse. And then of
Right.
course when people get to talk to me, they can flesh out maybe what they got wrong or whatever. But we are a visual people, and I just don't think people realize how visual we are as a society. And so that's where I come in. It's like, this is basically, you're dressing for a job interview when people see your logo. Like if you have premium customers because you have a premium product, like, does your logo look premium? Does your identity look premium? And if not, well, you're not going to attract the premium paying clients.
Absolutely. It all matters. I mean, think about um, the difference between Rolex and Timex,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or even like, when you see a Maserati symbol, it doesn't have to include the word with it on the car.
Mm-hmm. No.
Yeah. So there's certain things. And of course, part of my background is KFC. Like, if you're watching a TV show or a movie and you see a red and white bucket of chicken, you know exactly where that came from. Even if it doesn't have a Colonel face or name or anything like that, you just know, you have those associations. So I love this part of the conversation, to be able to get business owners to understand, yes, it is that important. Like, because most small businesses, as you well know, they love to do what they do within their business. All of the other stuff is just an irritating necessary sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know for me, I don't like to do my bookkeeping, but it's an irritating necessary for it to get done. But I've got some people on the podcast coming up that is definitely not my thing, but it's their thing. And it's beautiful how you have come into the marketplace with your background, creativity, design work, your strategy approach to how the identity works within the marketplace for businesses. That's awesome. So share with us, what is one big challenge that you've had to overcome with your being in business?
Well, I would say there's two main challenges. So the first main challenge probably deals more with the client interaction. So a lot of people are kind of put off by it, but I only provide one option. When you pay me to come up with an identity, I will provide one option, and that one option has my heart, my soul, and all of the research to show that it's the best option. If they pay for more than one option, then I'll provide more than one option, but and there's a couple of reasons why I do that. So it's frustrating, and it's typical owning a business thing. There's just hurdles that you got to work through, but a lot of the times a client will have an idea of what they think it should look like, but they haven't really researched it. They haven't thought through it. They haven't gotten an outside perspective. I mean, I've had people come to me and want me to just whip something together. They've provided me with some clip art and everything. And I think I've told you this before in our the last time we spoke, but like I've had people like come to me and they don't realize how, like, the amount of like sexual undertones that exist within what they're wanting me to design. And like as a designer who focuses on branding, it's like I have to think through, what is a consumer going to see when they see this? They're not thinking through that. They're not thinking through the fact that maybe there's 1,000 other companies out there that have the exact same logo in their industry. Maybe so there's a lot of thinking and research that goes behind it. So the first hurdle that I always deal with is trying to get them to understand, look, my job is not to give you what you want. My job is to give you what you need. And with that in mind, here's what I think you need, and here's why you need it. I don't provide multiple options at once, because typically it's like, well, we like the icon over here, but I like the font better over here. They don't understand that I spent hours upon hours upon hours finding a typeface and customizing it to fit the icon. They just want to grab this one over here and put it over here. And then it kind of, my son's really into monsters right now. So Frankenstein, it looks like Frankenstein with just all these bits and pieces. So the type doesn't match the icon. It doesn't balance. They don't balance one another out. So it's getting them to understand, like, look, I didn't just whip this together. I gave you what I think you truly need, what will truly help you. Please trust me. So I guess I could just sum it up with trust and stop rambling. The second most difficult thing of being a business owner is just understanding like the hills and valleys of owning a business, especially when you're full time. Like I said, when I was with my business partner, I mean, we both pretty much the entire time had either other full-time jobs or other part-time jobs. It was never just, I think my business partner was just our company for a little bit, but then he picked up another job. I can't remember at this point, but when you're just full-time though, it's straight chaos. You wake up in the morning and you're like, all right, I'm ready to do this. And then like an hour later, you're just like, I need to start checking like Indeed.com or ZipRecruiter. And then like an hour after that, you're like, okay, I can do this. And then an hour after that, you're like, why did I choose this life? And then you're having to like, it's just constant, like having to tell yourself like, look, you can do this. You can do this. And looking back, I've been able, like I said, I started Decree Design Company in 2018. Like I've been able to buy my family a house. My wife's been able to stay home and raise our son and our daughter who's on the way. And that's something that she wanted to do. She wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. And I was able to provide that and buy us a house through graphic design and through owning a business. So you're going to have those hills and those valleys, but like when you're on the top of the hill, remind yourself that a valley is coming up at some point, but eventually you're going to be on the other side on another hill looking back at the valley that you just came through. So it's just constant like self-motivation, and I guess just a constant mental TED talk, I suppose. I don't know what you want to call it.
So that leads me into the next question. Because what you just described is the entrepreneur roller coaster. And Darren Hardy has written about that. And he's one of my influencers in my business. Who are people who have influenced you or that you gravitate to listen to and, take input in for you and your business?
I'm trying to think. Like there's designers that have been very influential, especially like in the beginning. I would say like marketing wise or just kind of like business operation wise, Donald Miller.
Okay.
Yeah. So authors, Donald Miller had a book come out. What was it called? Where is it? Building a Story Brand. That was super helpful. Blair Eanes has a book called The Win Without Pitching Manifesto. That was specifically for I don't even know if he's a designer or anything. I think he just is really passionate about helping creative businesses price their stuff well. So that whole book was mind altering for me to kind of like, look, like my creative services have value. The world, you know, goes and runs around creative services. I mean, think about it, like photography, videography, graphic design, the magazines that you read, the movies that you watch, the podcasts that you listen to. I mean, that's all creative. So when you think about it, like our world operates because of creative service providers.
Yes.
So trying to understand, it's like, look, like when a company comes to me, like I shouldn't feel guilty charging them because ultimately it's going to help them, you know. And a lot of the times I see it happen financially, like the there's a financial return on investment that I see with companies, but when I provide them with a brand package that they love, I see a mental shift in the owners of the business. They're excited for the first time in a long time. They feel like they've had a facelift. They feel like a whole brand new company. They operate with enthusiasm and they motivate the people that they work with. So I see an internal change, and then I'll see the external change as well. There's a guy named Chris Doe who actually introduced me to the Blair Eanes book. He's got a YouTube channel that's really helpful for I think his catchphrase is the business of design and the design of business, or at least that's what it used to be. So he's been very helpful. Mark McNulty, which you know Mark, I started using him as a coach this year, and he's been very, very helpful. But and like I said, there are the designers that I really look up to and draw inspiration from. But I'm also like a very outside. I find inspiration like outside of what I do.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like you know, bourbon and spirits like that. So I'm fascinated, and I draw inspiration from the process and the history, and
Not just the drink
you know,
itself.
I still like not just the drink itself. You know, I like beer and the branding that goes behind beer, because now like craft breweries they're everywhere. They're absolutely
Yes.
everywhere. So I'm really drawn to the ones that have really thought through their branding and their packaging, because they're yeah, they might be a local brewery, but they're trying to compete on a larger level. And I like the process of that. And you know, I still like skateboarding. You know, my board's right there. I like to barbecue. So I like to, you know, over the last couple of years, I've learned how to barbecue and smoke food, which has been fun. I'm trying to think. Oh, a lot of people don't know this, but I collect yo-yos. And
Really?
yeah, I collect yo-yos. So I've got a lot of these, and it's the tricks that you do with these are not the tricks that you would do, you know, with your standard Duncan. So
Now, I
yeah, I
actually
draw
have
inspiration from.
a whittled. My great grandpa used to whittle all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, take a little pocket knife out and whittle. And he whittled me a yo-yo.
Yeah, so it's I'm kind of all over the place by what I draw inspiration from.
Nice. Nice. Okay, so what's the best advice you've gotten from anybody over the years? Best advice about anything.
Probably anything. I mean, I couldn't really pinpoint it and say like, you know, this is verbatim what I've been told. Um, but just do what you're convicted to do, and don't do what somebody else told you to do. Whether that be the services that you provide, the product that you sell, like run the business the way that you want to run the business, and then have confidence in the way that you're doing it. Now, that doesn't mean like, you know, like I'll bounce something off of Mark McNulty, my business coach, and he'll be like, maybe think through it this way or whatever. Like, I'm not talking about the actual logistical operations. I mean, you need to make sure that that's set. But when it comes to operating that you want to operate and running the business the way that you want to run it, from a very personal, genuine, personified perspective, like do it. You know, if I took a regular job, if I took a regular job the way that everybody else around me did, we wouldn't be where we're at, you know.
Right.
Like we wouldn't be where we are at. My wife is such a big support, and my son is such an inspiration. It's like when everyone around you is like, just take a regular job, take something that's safe, which obviously this year you learned that if you're traditionally employed, there's no safety wrapped up in that. Like the difference between being self-employed and being traditionally employed is the placement of the risk. Like,
Yes.
if you're traditionally employed, you are placing your financial security on your employer. But if at any point he wants to drop you or she wants to drop you because they need to save money and look out for their bottom line and look out for the business, they will. Self-employed people, like, you take that burden upon yourself. So in the midst of chaos like 2020 has been, like, there's nobody there to stop you. Like, there is nobody there to stop you. Everybody else is out, like, finding out that they're losing, their job, and it's horrible and heartbreaking and it's sad. But at the same time, if you're self-employed, like, there's nothing there to stop you. There's nothing there to slow you down. Go and do it. You know what I mean?
So is that a piece of advice you would give everybody else at this stage?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, like, there are days where it's been very hard. The first year in 2018, I actually had a company call me in, and they basically said, like, we want to offer you a job. And we had just moved to Louisville within the last like 9 or 10 months. And even though I just started my company, it was like, well, maybe since I'm building it in a new city, I should take a job somewhere else and kind of grow it slowly. So I told them, I was like, they contacted me and said, hey, can you come in? And they essentially said, we're asking you to come in. We're going to offer you the job, but we want to kind of give you like a tour, let you get to know everything and everybody that's important or whatever. And I said, yeah, I'll be there. We scheduled it. I got off the phone. My wife was in the other room, and my son was sitting on the couch, and he was playing with his action figures. I'd just gotten off the phone and said, yeah, I'll be there for the interview, the walkthrough interview job offer thingy. And my son is sitting on the couch playing with his action figures, because at this time we were living in an apartment because we had relocated, took the first thing we could find, and he was just sitting there playing. And I was like, I don't want that. I want this. And I want to be able to show my son that if he wants to build something, he can, and he'll know that he can build something because he saw his dad do the exact thing. So like, I basically did it because it's like, I want my kids to be like, look, sky's the limit. Build something if you want to. Nobody's there to stop you. Go and do it.
So I think I kind of know the answer to this one, but if you had to define success, what does success mean for you?
I would just say living on your own terms. Yeah, I mean, I love what I do, but at the end of the day, my wife or my son may come downstairs to my office and chit chat with me while I'm working. I can go up there and chit chat with them. If we just kind of want to up and go, like this week, we're going to go camping for a couple of days just because I don't have to ask anybody for permission. I don't have to schedule it. We're just going to go do it because we decided we wanted to, and we can. If we want to just in the middle of the week go visit family and come back the next day or whatever, we can do that. If we want to go out and grab lunch or whatever, I mean, it's the freedom. It's absolute freedom. And yeah, living on your own terms.
Love it. Love it. So Joe, I want to thank you very much for your time today for this episode of Small Business Small Talk. I've been very excited to learn more and learn something new. And I know it's going to be crazy, but I expect to see more yo-yos in our future meetings because I need a yo-yo trick every now and then. That would be fantastic. Just bring that to the groups. They would be super surprised as well, I'm sure.
It would have to be like favorite nostalgic toy theme for coffee chat or something.
Oh, that is a great idea. I will let the chamber know that because,
Yeah.
that is actually a great idea. We'll pass that one along. So again, thank you so much for your time at this for this particular episode for Small Business Small Talk. For those of you listening and watching, I thank you also for your time, and join us again. Subscribe to our channels. Make sure you have that set. This is season 2 for 2020. And again, Joe Hearne with Decree Design. Thank you so much for your time today. And
Thank you.
remember, you guys can out there just ask Alexa, play the latest episode of Small Business Small Talk. And what do you know? She'll do it. Or Google will do the same thing. And when I said this out loud, I'm going to say this. I said this out loud one day as I'm recording this podcast, and I forgot. I had my little Google Dot or Echo or whatever that thing is. I had my little Google Pod thing over here, and I said Google too many times, and it's like, how can I help you? I'm like, no. So we turned that off while I'm trying to record because we don't need its input while I'm doing this. So
I'm not gonna lie, that's kind of creepy.
It is a little on the extra creepy side, but it is one of the things that you could do. You could totally ask it to do something, and it, if it's set up correctly, because I don't have mine completely set up, it will do what you ask it to do, which is amazing, other than clean the house. So there's some small things it still doesn't accomplish for people like us that it would be super helpful for. So with that, though, that's it. It's the end of the podcast. Thank you guys very much for this episode. Tune in again for the next episode of Small Business Small Talk. I've been your host, Christy Smallwood. And again, thank you for your time today.